righty, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Smudcast 600th episode celebration part 2 with some guys and gals you might have heard of in the past few months or the past few years that haven't been on in a while for all kinds of different reasons. And our first person up is, of course, one of our wonderful fantasy writers who always has something to say about something in a very chilled out tone. Mr. Dunn, how do you do, sir?
I'm doing quite well. Thank you for having me on.
I wish we had you on more. I know you're busy writing away. How many books? I know you have a crazy schedule for writing. How many books have you gotten up to this year alone?
I wrote 2 books this year, and I'm planning on getting 1 to 2 more finished.
Wow. So in total, how much do you have in your library?
In total, I have 16 published, including a partially finished Kindle Vella book called Super Shots. And I have one that I've just barely submitted to Shadow Mountain to be officially published. And then I have more that are part of series on Amazon that I'm excited to publish sometime in the near future, though most of any starter books from now on I'm going to send to an actual publisher because I'm just not going to be able to make this model workable.
So you're finding that Amazon's a bit tricky, or what's the idea you've got behind your books? Because you're not just doing fantasy anymore, you're doing a bunch of other genres. Oh, Dunn, you're breaking up there, buddy. 1 second. 1 second there, Dunn. I'm going to swap you because the regions are just changing me up on me. So 1 second. Ta-da-da. Honk. There we go. Hong Kong it is. All right, let's try that. Dunn, you there? Dunn's still gone. Oh, no. We've lost Dunn. Hey, Matt, how's it going?
How you doing? I'm fighting off a bit of a cold, so if I sound kind of raspy, that's the reason.
Oh, great. No problem. Yeah, you're on the other side of the USA, so thank you for popping in. We do appreciate it.
Hey, it's nice and early where I am.
Yeah, I was like, what do we do with Mr. Matt? And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe we'll get him on later for the time zone difference, but if he's got time, hey, pop on, no problem. We've got lots of things to talk about with you. Hopefully I can get Dunn back, but darn, he's gone again. And we even got him a nice microphone and everything. Everything was working fine.
So Dunn is all done?
It's always the internet with Mr. Dunn and his wonderful family experiences. So, yeah, technical problems do happen. But Dunn, if you're still there, please try and reconnect or disconnect from the phone call and reconnect. That'd be good. Anyway, Dunn is our...
Congratulations on your anniversary or
oh, thank you.
You're celebrating.
Yeah, we are just doing things very quickly and off the cuff half the time anyway. So, maybe have 1 month we'll do one almost every other day. And some months we'll go for maybe 1 or 2 depending on how busy we are. This month has been pretty busy with scheduling and, of course, traffic and family. So it's tough. But to get people on for 30-minute blocks was the idea, bearing the technology problems.
Well, we certainly appreciated you making time to come on our Saturday morning live stream this year. So anytime you want me to pop on Saturday, it's no problem. Hey, Dunn, are you back? Oh, he's not. He's not there. Damn it! Oh, God. Always sounds so disappointed.
Yeah, well, he's our resident writer. He writes books like a madman. If you check out his Amazon page.
I am a published author as well.
I know, Matt. I know. I was gonna say all the other awesome things when I get to you later today.
Oh, okay.
Sadly, but here you are now. But he's been publishing on Amazon for years now. He's done fantasy and sci-fi and contemporary stuff, and he's looking at more than just Amazon. So it links in the description for his books and his YouTube channel. But he is prolific so far, and he does not stop. Every day he writes 1,000 words, I think.
Yeah, all the top authors I know who I'm friends with, they they're just obsessive about writing new books. It's like every time I call them up, I'm like, hey, you want to go grab lunch? They're like, I can't. Got to get this book done. Got to get out there.
I know.
That's a sign. That's a sign of a good writer.
And
someone
it's
who just obsessed with writing.
Yeah, and it's not just one book. They have like 4 or 5 ideas going on all at once, and there's no shortage of idea. Like, people have like writer's block, or they can't figure out how to solve a problem that their characters go through. It's like, no, these writers are like, no, I got like 12 different ways to close this chapter, and I got all these new ideas. They're not even sure what to do because they got so many.
Lucasfilm would hire some of them, right?
Lucasfilm. I don't know. I'm sort of giving up on Disney and whatever they're. Even Marvel is scaring me. I don't know what they're trying to do, and it's weird because I'm not really into the DC Marvel comic book Star Wars anymore. It's kind of dead to me at a certain point. But some of the properties are good. Some of the IPs from those guys are okay.
It all comes down to the writers, right? Like back in the 80s when Michael Ovitz kind of started up CAA, the big talent agency in Hollywood. The first thing he did was he went out and he cornered the market on all the big screenwriters, right? Because he realized you can't make a movie or TV show without writers. And so he would go out, he signed all the writers onto his agency, his brand new agency. He was like an upstart, right? And everyone was kind of laughing at him. It's like, oh, look at this ex-lawyer who's going out trying to be a power broker. But once he had every single writer underneath his belt, he was able to package together like acting clients and directing clients and stuff like that with the writer. So it's like, oh, if you want this writer to write your project, you have to also put this actor in your project. And he kind of came up with that whole packaging thing. But it all started around the fact that he controlled the writers. And Hollywood studios were forced to go to CAA if they wanted to get anything written. And that's kind of how it rose to prominence.
Well, that's I would say the start of how you build a working project. You start with the creative, which is the writing team, or the creative team, and whatever ideas they come up with. The writer then generates an outline for a script. The production team says, okay, can this even be made? Can we have the resources? And we go through the entire process of building a creative thing. And yeah, writing is the start of all of that. So
yeah, I think one of the big problems with Hollywood nowadays is that you have a bunch of writers in very high positions where, like, people hire them to do stuff. Like let's just take Lucasfilm, for example, right? You got Jonathan Kasdan there. Who's doing Willow. He was the co-writer on Solo. This is a guy who's got his job through his dad, basically. He didn't have to make his bones. He didn't have to actually write anything that was good. He had made like 2 movies before he did Solo. I think one was called The First Time, and the other was called In the Company of Women or something like that. And I get the sense that even though he's credited as writing both those movies, the better one is In the Company of Women. I think that his dad probably ghost wrote a lot of that for him because it was actually pretty good. But you have guys like this who aren't good writers, and they don't take the craft of writing seriously, and they haven't bothered to study it or go to school for it or take it seriously. You get a lot of these types of people in Hollywood who are like someone's barber, and they're like, oh yeah, I wrote a script, and it's all based off of like oh, I learned how to put words on a piece of paper in school, therefore I am a writer, as opposed to actual storytellers who actually study the craft of storytelling and know like structure and things like dramatic irony and all the stuff that you learn when you actually go through English courses or go through storytelling courses or creative writing courses or what have you. And so you have a whole generation of professionals in Hollywood who've never actually studied the craft of writing, who are in charge of writing stuff, right? I think it was, I forget her name, but the woman who was the showrunner of the She-Hulk TV series, where they had a plan to do the Abomination Emil Blonsky trial as like the season-long story arc. And then once they hired all the writers and got in the room, they realized that no one knew how to write legal drama. And so they're like, okay, well, we'll just turn that into like a 1-episode throwaway and do other stuff. But it's like the entire premise of your show is about lawyers and legal dramas. Like, this is a very simple, like, you could have just watched any David E. Kelly show and just copied what they did, right? But you had an entire writer's room full of people who sucked at writing legal dramas on a show that was about a lawyer. And it's like, come on, this is like they didn't even watch Ally McBeal.
Or
Or
just watch
like they were on record as saying like, oh yeah, we've never seen Ally McBeal. And it's like, if there's anything that you want to base your legal comedy show on, it's Ally McBeal, right?
Dunn.
I mean, that's the big problem.
Dunn, you there, buddy?
Yeah. Yes, I believe I am. Sorry, I don't know why my internet decided to kill itself.
All right. Well, I'm glad to have you back. Thank you for filling in there, Matt. We're talking about writing in general, regards especially to the major problems we have with the joys of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the television land. So
I skipped at least half of the MCU's TV lineup. Like, I skipped Loki and I skipped She-Hulk. And I skipped a good number of the movies, like Eternals. Did not watch Black Widow. I skipped a lot of those because I'm just like, nah, not interested. To my shame, I got pressured into watching Shang-Chi and Multiverse of Madness. But at least I skipped out on Thor. And I think there's a Marvel movie out now, but I don't really care.
Yeah, no, they're all sort of either mediocre to just not watchable, and it's kind of sad.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of good action, actually, no, they do some decent work. Like the people who work on the projects aren't bad artists or creators. It's the story as a whole, and that's where we have our problems. The characterizations at times, some of the fight scenes and choreography are done very well. We had like all these wonderful YouTubers talk about fight scenes and actual martial artists. Like, oh yeah, this guy really knows what he's doing, and this scene is not very believable, but it's awesome for a movie, which is what you want. You want those awesome scenes in a movie. That's why you go to a movie, and those were maybe worth the price of admission. A few fight scenes, but actually sitting down and trying to pay attention and realizing that this is supposed to make sense, and these are people or trying to be people from characters on a screen is like, I don't buy it. Sorry.
It's not believable. The verisimilitude has been broken beyond repair, and there's no getting it back.
Yeah, and that's what we got with She-Hulk, at least from the clips that I saw on Twitter and YouTube, and you just cannot bother to sit down and watch that. It's not worth it. Although Matt might actually sit down and hurt himself because that's what he does. So, yeah, you guys are... I mean, this is what we do sometimes with YouTube critics who review media. Like, we just go into these insanely biased, out in left field, sometimes not even in the field critics that have weird opinions, and they're running out of ideas. Like, their philosophy only goes so far. But you actually sit through a season of HBO or Netflix of some really bad show, and then you have to talk about it for God knows how long, and I'm like, dude, that is so many. You have got lots of time, sir, to do all that. So,
Halo was rough. We did that with Halo on our podcast.
Halo.
That was a test of endurance.
I've heard so many bad things about that show. Even as a non-Halo fan, I felt really bad for Halo fans.
Well, Alex, the host of our show, loved Halo. He was a big fan, so he's like, yeah, man, we're going to check out this show. After about the first 2 episodes, we were like, oh, God, we made a terrible mistake. But we had to stick with it until the end.
Yeah.
I felt the same way with Rings of Power. Rings of Power was just even worse than I could have anticipated. The frickin' sword is a key to unlock a dam. The frickin' magic sword that they've been building up is just a key to a frickin' dam that they could have used some, like,
and watchtowers are just a bunch of Lincoln logs piled on top of each other. You can pull them down with a rope.
It was just so funny. I was just like, how? What are you, nuts? People are idiots.
Ancient elven technology. It's amazing, yeah. All right, we got a super chat from Legacy. Thank you, sir. This is why you look back at Marvel's older virtues. The MCU and its consequences have been a disaster on the Marvel universe. Well, okay. It depends. It depends. Because at the beginning, they got the Avengers going. They got this whole overarching plot for the Infinity Gauntlet. Like that takes ambition. That takes planning. You can't just say, let's do this, let's do that, let's do this. They have to actually plan each of these out to complete a pyramid of the end result, which is the Infinity War or the End Game. So that takes millions, if not billions of bucks to figure out and plan. And now it's like, hey, we did it. We did this awesome thing. And it's like, now we'll just do movies for no reason. And it's like, I don't know. Do you really want to see another Doctor Strange random thing with Spider-Man going on? Maybe. It could be good. I'm not saying it's bad. But is it fulfilling to Doctor Strange fans? Is it fulfilling to Spider-Man fans? What the hell is that film? And it's just a mishmash. It's just this crazy mess. Like the first one was a CGI extravaganza, which is great if that's what you're going for. But I don't think you want to turn Doctor Strange into like the Transformers version 2. It doesn't seem like a good idea. So I don't know. Marvel,
especially since Transformers not even the good version of Transformers.
Yeah, well, I know we talked about Transformers a lot on the Smudcast, and Michael Bay. At least Michael Bay knows what he's doing. Like, that's what I appreciate. Like he knows his audience. He knows what he's selling. And Marvel, does Marvel have an identity anymore of what kind of projects or content they're pumping out? I don't even think they do.
I feel like COVID really threw them for a loop. I feel like they had a plan for Phase 4, and all the lockdowns and stuff messed it all up for them. And so for this entire phase, they've just been trying to scramble to get stuff out as opposed to actually having it fit into any type of game plan. And they've had to do like a lot of last minute changes to stuff that they had planned out. So,
right, yeah.
Like right now, they're talking about how they're having to reevaluate phases 5 and 6 right now to make sure that all of the mistakes they made during phase 4 don't keep repeating themselves.
Yeah, since it was just a terrible, terrible mistake.
So
for most of these things.
Yeah, Dunn, let's get back to you because we have you now and we might lose you again. So what would you like to talk about regarding, was it storytelling or your books? I can't remember, but we were talking about characterization in stories or characters in your stories, or what was the actual thing you wanted to discuss?
I think like one interesting thing to discuss would be sympathetic versus compelling.
Oh, interesting.
Because I would say because those are two very different things that I'm not sure have fully been understood by a lot of the writing population. They want to try and make people sympathetic, but not really succeeding, not even making them compelling either. My go-to example is somebody who writes really compelling characters that are only vaguely sympathetic is actually Joe Abercrombie, who's actually my favorite writer at this point in time, at least, because of how expertly he writes extremely compelling, nuanced characters who are bad people. He still manages to make them extremely compelling and fun to read.
Now, does that mean the characters are sympathetic, or you feel sympathy for those characters even if they're bad?
I would say in a way, yes. One of them is at least for the first trilogy, there's one of them you don't feel sympathy for. He's a spoiled rich kid, just wants to gamble and womanize and be lazy. Then you have a barbarian type who's been exiled because he's a bloodthirsty monster. You just don't realize how much of a bloodthirsty monster he is.
And these are
until later.
I'm assuming these are within the fantasy genre, or this guy writes other styles of books.
They're mainly fantasy, but it's very low fantasy. It's even lower fantasy than, say, Lord of the Rings.
Oh, wow.
There's no in the supposed Gandalf of the books is an evil man who is pulling the strings for a bunch of different plots because he's a very bitter, cynical person.
Yeah.
And kind of a bit of a spoiler, he ends up being the head of this massive banking corporation that is pulling the strings behind a very large power war between the two sides, between two massive kingdoms, because he hates the person on the other side.
I gotcha. All right, so what's the difference then between a compelling character? Because a compelling character can mean many things to their personality, to their motivation, to the audience's reaction. They could love a character who's just boring and plain because he is boring and plain. So what's the big appeal there, or the difference rather, to a compelling character?
I would say that a compelling character is very much in how they are written and how they interact with the world around them. One example of somebody who's extremely compelling is Sandan Glokta, but also Kaladin Stormblessed are both sympathetic and compelling characters. With Kaladin, we see him in the middle of a battle to start off, and then we see him as a slave. So we're immediately wanting to know how he got to this point. And a lot of the book flicks back and forth between present-day events and his backstory. With Sandan Glokta, he is a former colonel in the army until he was captured by enemy forces and tortured within an inch of his life, and now he's extremely infirm and he works as a torturer for the government.
I'm sorry, which book series is he from?
Sandan Glokta is from the First Law. Kaladin Stormblessed is from the Stormlight Archive.
Oh, that's Sanderson. Brandon Sanderson. Okay. Now my brain's like, what? This sounds familiar. Who's this guy? My fantasy knowledge is not as big as it used to be. Oh no, Dunn, you're gone again. No.
I'm still here.
Oh, there you are. Okay, great.
I was just waiting for you to finish talking. Yeah, there's also Dalinar Kholin, who's positioned as this really good guy, and you find out, oh, he used to be really kind of a bad person in his early life, kind of a bit of a barbarian in some ways.
So you're saying that there's a with that original character, you're saying there was something different about his either his standing or his personality that changed to make him be seen in a different light, not necessarily in a form of growth, but that he was depicted in a different way that made him compelling. That's interesting.
It's with Kaladin's.
Yeah, no, I was just curious because like usually we want to see growth in a character over time, but it sounds as if like one chapter ends and the second chapter is a totally different scenario, and we have this character we thought we knew, and now he's this totally different dude. Whether it's time skip or some tragic background, or we go into a flashback, that we see where he came from or why he's that way, but we already have knowledge of him in the previous chapter. So it sounds like you take someone outside of where we thought they would be, and all of a sudden he's somewhere else, and he's someone else, even though we know, or the audience knows, that he came from what we know of in chapter 1. And that's I never really thought of it that way, because I always want characters to grow. I want to see a linear progression from A to B. I don't need A to B filled in. I just need to know that A and B happened. So that when you do a time skip or you do a chapter 10, or I don't know, you go back in time, it's like, okay, how did we get from B to A or A to B? That's what I wanted to know. But if you're saying it's just a difference of setting and time and role, it's like, yeah, that's pretty interesting. I didn't think about it that way.
Then he has his own arc as he interacts with a bunch of other men who are trapped in a set of things called bridge crews, where they're basically some undead runs runs to try and be meat shields for the army of the guy that is their owner, essentially. And he goes from kind of a guy who's lost a lot of hope to a guy who decides, I'm going to protect people no matter what happens.
So he sounds like he goes from, was it a slave, or what was he originally? Like from riches or rags to riches, or from rags to, well, as a protector, I guess it's not rags to riches, but rags to some standing in the social hierarchy, where he's then decides to be a hero to help people.
So the way that he starts is that he's a squad leader in an army, and after that he is betrayed when he does something extremely heroic, which is kill an enemy shard bearer, which is basically a guy in a set of power armor with a lightsaber.
This is a fantasy? No. Jeez.
Yeah, fantasy lightsaber. It's essentially a massive anime sword that can cut through any inanimate object.
Oh boy. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I actually have pictures of me holding a foam replica shard blade.
Is it like every fantasy or sci-fi fantasy story has to have like this super weapon that's a sword that can cut through anything? Is that the idea?
Kind of. You eventually find out that they're the souls of dead elementals, mental spirits called Spren.
Yeah, never heard that one. Oh dear. Sorry.
And that eventually they find out, okay, they're, in order to become a Knight Radiant and get these special powers called Surge Binding, in his case, gravitation and adhesion, you need to bond with the Spren, make oaths, and keep those oaths.
Jeez. My brain just goes back to the Druid of Shannara with Terry Brooks, and there's the assassin called Pay-El, and he has this weapon called the Stale, which is some ancient relic. It's like a little dagger. Cut through anything. Just takes some time to saw through big things, but it's like every fantasy book has to have this like indestructible or this weapon that can just destroy anything. It just happens everywhere. Anyway.
Well, at least in the case of the shard blade, it does something different to a living person as opposed to an inanimate object.
Okay.
It just burns out their eyes when it cuts through the spine.
Oh my god. Okay.
And then kills and then severs their soul if the spine gets hit.
Interesting. Okay, Jesus.
And later on, Kaladin swears his second ideal, and instead of a sword, he uses a shard spear.
Shard spear.
Because that's where because he's a dark-eyed spearman, and dark-eyed people are the peasant class, and they're only allowed spears, and swords are kept for the nobility or the light eyes.
And this is a Brandon Sanderson novel that must be more than one. There must be several books in the series.
There are currently 4, and there's going to be 10.
Wow.
And each of them are about several hundred K.
Was that
words?
Was that his Kickstarter project that he got going off the ground, or what was that?
No, that was a separate one.
Okay.
That was on top of the Kickstarter project.
Jeez, he's still writing. Holy crap. That guy's a machine. Man, all you guys love writing these fantasy novels. Awesome. Okay. Well done. I'm going to be seeing if Zach is around so you can pop him on. But before that, we got a donation from Gingaman. Thanks, Gingaman, again. Don't you just miss the days when writers would just straight up take the time to study up on what they got to write into their stories? Also, welcome to the Smudcast, Matt Kadish. Keep the good work on Salty Nerd Podcast. There you go. So, thank you, Gingaman, and for patting Mr. Kadish on the back. But we're going to transition to another panelist we haven't seen for a while. Thanks for your time, Dunn. Sorry about all the technical problems. We got to stick to our schedule, but I'm sure we'll get you later soon. And if you guys want to check out any of Dunn's books, I think most of them are, if not all of them, are on the links for Amazon, right?
All of them, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
All of them.
Good stuff. Well, we'll be happy to have you on later, but thanks for being on.
One thing you don't know about Dunn is that I wrote most of his books.
In spirit.
Yeah, he's a very efficient ghostwriter.
There you go.
Yep. Zach right. Dunn. That's in my name. Dunn.
Right.
Okay.
Ready. See you later.
See you. All right, Zach, how's it going, buddy? What's new? What's going on? It's a little off the cuff kind of a thing we're doing right now with you because we sort of just chatted about going, what are we going to do? Like, I don't know, money, life, cooking, exercise. I don't know. What do you feel like? I'll just do it all. I was like, okay. I don't know.
Yeah, it's been a really cool trip I've been on for the past year. Just been in sales, and I like doing things off the cuff. I like, just thinking in the moment. But I wanted to talk about money and life, catch up with you a little bit.
Sure.
It's been a minute since we got a chance to talk.
Yeah, I mean, as we know, the stock market, in terms of this year, rather, has been a bear. It's been the longest bear I've ever seen in my life. And we don't know when it's going to stop. So, I was contemplating opening up a investing channel like in March. And I was like, okay, it's a little downturn, no problem. And then it just kept going. And I'm like, ooh, I should not open my mouth. Because if I recommend buying anything, people are going to get confused. They're going to get pissed off. And I can teach anyone within 2 minutes how to buy a stock that is going to do well, that has a good track record, and has good prospects. Because a lot of people just see, a big name like Tesla, or a high yield if they're a dividend investor, or high growth. And they think, the PE ratio is the be all end all. It's like, it's important.
Have you looked at just Tesla's track record over the past 2 years? It's been to the highest of highs and then the lowest of lows, and then it's one of the most volatile things I've ever seen in my life for a big name company.
Oh yeah, it's overvalued by at least 7-8 times. It's crazy. So if you bought in at was it $10 or $100 one year, jumped up to 900 one time, it's just like, okay. Fun, I guess. And
my God.
Yeah, and people are shorting it, and they keep buying it, so it doesn't make a difference. And if you look at their space, they are 90% of the automotive industry or the automotive sector compared to Ford and Chevy, I think. So yeah, they are dominating that sector in the marketplace, and
I think it's just and I'm going to blame a certain section of the internet for this. I'm going to blame Wall Street Bets. If anybody's familiar with Reddit, the subreddit Wall Street Bets, I'm going to blame them because they are all autistic madmen.
Oh, and what they're doing with GameSpot, they're trying to bring GameSpot back to its golden age of the 90s or whatever, and you're like, what? No.
That was absurd. They all just decided GameStop. We're just going to short GameStop. It's going to be great. And then I think it was, that was the great Robin Hood scandal from I think about a year or two back.
Yeah. So
step one for getting into stock trading, download Robinhood. Step two, kill yourself because you hate your life.
There's that wonderful YouTuber called Benjamin, I think, and he does he used to do a lot of Wall Street Bets. People had schemes, and he would actually work them out, as well as talk about some of the major guys who made money from Wall Street Bets, what the hell was his name? He must have made $45 million or something like that, just off GameSpot. So it's nuts.
Man, I remember being real heavy in that community when I was first getting into stock trading. I'm not in it now, and I'm not into stock trading right now, but just money issues and trying to get my own money up. But I got into their Discord. I was just talking with a few people, and I was doing some day trading then, and I had this guy message me. He's like, "Hey man, do you want to make some quick money?" And I went, yes, I think so. And he was like, "Buy this stock tonight, and then tomorrow sell at this time." And I went, "Okay, yeah, sure, definitely, man." I didn't do it. but I watched that stock and it hit a real big low, like right before closing, and I was like, okay, interesting. And then the next day it doubled, and I went, okay, I am scared. like there's so much insider trading going on in that little community, and it's just absolutely absurd. That entire community of stock traders, like I said, they're autistic madmen, and they can just really play the market however they want.
Well, I don't do day trading. I mean, I do buy every other day or every few times a week, but I don't sell. I just buy what I like. I know what I want. I check the ex-dividend dates, and I make sure I'm aligned with the day before. And that's it. I do that all throughout the year, whether I'm working or whether I'm not working. So I can give you, or everyone who's watching the screen right now, the best advice I could think of that for buying a stock, okay? And there's just 3 major rules, okay? Everyone knows the first rule. Buy low, sell high, right? The problem is...
easy.
Yeah, no, it's basic. You have to do that. That's the only way you're going to make money. So, or the main way you're going to make money. So in order to do that, you have to have at least the expectation. I know this is logic by induction, meaning that, how do you know Microsoft's going to go up tomorrow? Well, it went up in the past. It's like, well, how do you know it? Well, look at the past, but how do you know it's going to go up tomorrow? Like that's the circular logic. So that's the problem with induction or logic by induction. However, I still bet on Microsoft anyway. So let's just look at, I'm on seekingalpha.com, and I pulled up the MSFT ticker. So here we have, very simple, look at the 1 year, the 5 year, the 10 year, and the max. So the 1 year, everything's been down this year. Doesn't matter if it's Microsoft or Apple or Tesla. Well, I'd say 90% of stocks on any worldwide exchange have gone down this year. So,
all down.
Yeah. So what we do is say, okay, well, that means it's a good time to buy. And technically, yeah, you're right. But let's look at 5 years. 5 years, it went up 190%. That's amazing. And you see the big hump. It hit the max in what is it, January, and it just started slowly declining. And this is how you know we're in a recession, because Microsoft and Apple are the big 2 names in their sector. They dominate. They're like the majority of the trades every day in the sector. So they are. I think one time Apple was like 60-70% of the NASDAQ or whatever the technical exchange.
Like the entire market.
Yeah, it was absurd. Yeah, it was just so big. So this is what you're looking for.
Oh man, look at that. That's even crazy, because you can see exactly when COVID hit.
Yeah, 2020. You're right. On
old Microsoft there.
That little dip. And that's another way to track things. If it was lower than COVID, like if the stock goes lower than COVID in March 2020, that's a pretty good time to buy, because how much lower can it get?
Insane time to buy.
Because what was happening in March and April, everyone just lost confidence. No one was working. All planes and trucks and ships pretty much stopped.
Yeah. You look at any town, it was like a ghost town.
Yeah, so that's a pretty good indicator. And if you're in between that, I've seen a lot of Canadian stocks between February and March that are just sort of, coasting there. Still a good time to buy. But anyway, my original point was, look at this. Look at the past of Microsoft. So 5 years, 190+%. 10 years, 822%. That's gigantic. And of course, the max is like insufferably, 10,000. So with this average being in the positive over 5%, meaning the positive 5%, I can safely bet that Microsoft's going to make me some money in 5 years, even in a bear market. Okay, so that's.
Look at this though. Look at that 10-year though. So right after COVID, you see how it's like really steady. This is very interesting. It's very steadily inclining, and then COVID hit, and then it becomes a slightly more volatile. And then over this past year, ever since all this Ukraine stuff started going on, it's been even more volatile, but it's been on a downward turn.
Right.
So you can kind of tell by world events what things are going to happen with the stock market and when's going to be a good time to buy. Like now is a decent time to buy. You're going to lose money in the short term, but eventually, within 5 years, holy fuck, you're up 1,000, whatever.
Yeah, it's funny because the doom and gloomers are like, don't buy anything for the next 16 months. And you're like, really? Nothing.
That's absurd.
Yeah, and then you have
That's
like Warren Buffett, who's like, well, who cares who cares about timing the market? Just buy what you believe in and your analysis, because Warren Buffett has like 50 different checks for a company that he wants to invest in, and once one of those metrics changes, then he'll sell and buy something else. So that's these two different approaches to things. So this is just step one. So if it has a positive return between its inception, its 5, 10, 3-year period, that's a good indicator that you're okay to buy and expect a return in 5, 10 years. The second one, if it does indeed have dividends, is, first of all, does it pay a dividend, and is the dividend increasing? So over the years, is Microsoft's dividend increasing? And it's, you can go through the average, which is like, 18 years of dividend growth, 5-year growth is, almost 10%. Yeah, it's fine. It's going to be fine. Here's a nice gentle slope for 10-year in the dividend history tab. And it's just everything gets hit. Even with 2020, it never missed a payment. It never cut a payment. It never decreased a payment. So even if it's only paying 1%, you're going to grow that dividend as well as you're going to grow the price of your investment. So this is indicator number.
You're the one that turned me on to dividend investing, because that's going to be my long-term goal.
Well,
and part of my plan for financial freedom is dividend investing.
It is
but
great
the problem
idea.
With dividend investing, you have to have a shit ton of money invested in the market to be able to have a sustainable income just off of dividends.
Yes, people think that they're going to live off dividends when they're 30 after investing for 5 years. It's like, well, you might, but you have to be very clever to time the market and buy at a certain ratio. So this is for people who are ready to retire, like they have $2 million in the bank. And,
basically.
And they're going to put their money into safe things, not necessarily Microsoft, because Microsoft only pays out 1%, but they might do Realty Income. They might do Stag Industrial. They might do some real estate thing, which gives out 5%, 6%, maybe 9%. So that is where your priorities shift. But I do a combination of two. I do value investing as well as growth investing. So it's up to you what you want to do with your money in 5 years' time. But any investment is always going to be a 5 to 10 year investment anyway. And that's why I say, if you're going to invest early. Like Zach, in your case, let's say your income per year is $50,000, right? So after taxes, $50,000. Have a 20% emergency fund. So 20% of 50 is $10,000. So you have $10,000 that you don't really touch. It could be your checking account, it could be your savings account, it doesn't really matter. But you have $10,000 ready to go in case your car blows up, your house blows up, you get into an accident, anything what. Doesn't matter what the problem is, you have that 20% per year emergency fund regardless. After you have that, and after you've paid off your major debts, like insurance, mortgage, whatever, then it's like, okay, now I can start investing in mutual funds, stocks, GICs, real estate, whatever you want. That's when it's good to go. I always say, if you're a kid and you don't have anything, what are you going to do with 10 grand from your grandfather? Nothing. You're going to buy boxes and boxes of chocolates or shoes or whatever. You're just sitting there. And
I think if you're a kid and you have nothing, what you need to do is start freelancing. Have a job, obviously. If you're going to college, do that. If you're going to college, be freelancing. And that involves sales, selling your skill to someone with money, and then they give you money because you did a skill for them, whether that be web design, email copywriting, any variety of different things that you could possibly do for someone with money for them to give you some of their money. That's what you need to be doing to supplement your income, and then eventually start working for yourself. And then once you're stable, working for yourself, whether you're in college or out of college, whatever, start investing, because that is going to be your nest egg, your fortress of solitude. That is your stable ground that nobody can mess with you, nobody can fuck you over. You're working for yourself and you're investing. which is fan-fucking-tastic position to be in.
And the other idea was that imagine all the opportunities you would have had if you spent like $1,000 on Microsoft, even during the 90s.
Like 10 years ago.
Even 10 years ago, you would have 10 times your money right there.
It's absurd.
And if it was 20 years ago, you would have, 20, 25 times your money. So, like, I don't want people to just like, okay, I have money in the bank, I have my emergency fund, I still have to pay off my mortgage. It's like, yeah, pay off your mortgage. Obviously, number one, pay off all your debts, of course. Always get those out of the way.
Don't be in debt. Don't be like me.
Never be in debt and say, I got to make some money to invest. It's like, no. Pay off your debts, then you consider it. But if you're a kid, you got some cash, and Google's the next big thing. Can you imagine investing in Google in like 2000? Holy crap.
Golly.
Yeah. Okay, so that's...
I mean, that's the same thing on the Bitcoin, motherfuckers. There's like one story of like a guy paid for a pizza with a whole ass Bitcoin.
Oh my God.
And then that one Bitcoin is like 50,000 or something.
Well, at certain parts of the year, 2 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, I know, right?
Now it's like 14,000. Yeah, I can't remember the exact price of Bitcoin. But, okay, so we have capital gains or, buy low, sell high. So the stock is always appreciating in value over time. And we've done the average for the 10-year, the 5-year, the maximum years. Then we looked at dividends. The dividends have not been cut. They've not been going down. They're gradually increasing. That means they have enough money to show off to their investors, hey, here's 1%, here's 2%. They're swimming in cash. Now, that's all good. But this is the third one. We're going to go to the charting tab. And this shows us the stock in relation to the index or relation to the market it's in. So this is the SP 500 or S&P 500. And over the year, on average, Microsoft has underperformed the market. Now, that's not fair because everything's underperforming the market. And there are some bigger names and smaller names that are up and down, getting above that average. So it's not really a fair trade-off because this year has been completely a bear market, whereas the other years have not. So I would say change the drop down from price return to total return, and still 1% or 1.1%, whatever the dividend is, isn't going to change much. But we're looking at 3 years now. And boom, everything being zero. So we go back to 2019 in December, and everything's at zero. So 0% index, 0% Microsoft, and it just starts tracking it, and boom, it's outperforming the S&P. That's what we want. The reason is because even if it's a great stock, it's going to return 10% in 1 year or 5 years, whatever it is. You could have put your money elsewhere, and in 3 years outperform the market. So even like we don't have to worry about Microsoft and Apple. They will outperform the market. So that's why these are safe bets. They're blue chips.
Yeah, there's certain companies that will just never fucking die. So like Ford, not going anywhere. Coca-Cola, not going anywhere. Microsoft, Apple, all these things, not going anywhere. These are fantastic investments to just have on the back burner, drop a few bucks here and there, a couple hundred, 1 month, a couple hundred the next month, whatever you got laying around that you're not spending on your next meal.
Right.
And, 10 years later, holy fuck, there's my retirement.
Right. So you have to think in terms of, is this going to be something I'm going to sell in 10 years on a positive, meaning on at least a 10 to 20% return? And 10 to 20% return is nothing much, especially after 10 years, but it's better than losing money. So
yeah,
I would
rather... This is better than money sitting in the bank.
Well...
Like, this is what... To a degree.
Because of what's happening with interest rates, if the interest rate is 5%, that's 5% return. So it's like, okay, can you get a better than 5% return per year? Because if it's in the bank, it's cashable. It's water. You could take it out and put it back in. With Microsoft, you got to, or with a stock, you got to sell. So that's why we've been having it too good for too long with next to 0% interest rates for, I don't know, a decade or two. It's been huge with the states. And the states make all the monetary policies on the rest of the world. So now that Mr. Fed, I can't remember his name, decides to keep increasing interest rates, just not as much. Just not as much as he wanted. It's like, okay, but you're going to have to eventually get to 6%. You realize that, or 7%, whatever it is now. So it's a slow process of killing a man very slowly with a knife. Yeah. So anyway, that's the 3 major rules for investing in anything, whether you're doing dividend investing, whether you're investing in stock to sell for 10 years later. You want to buy a winner. You want to buy one that pays out stable dividends, if not increasing dividends. And you want that one that returns on investment from a positive number or from a lower number to a higher number. Because if you don't have that, you'll never get any of these other numbers to pop up. Your PE ratio will be so damn high. You'll have all these other values that don't make a damn on the grand scope of things. And that's good. You should look at those other factors like the balance sheets and all the debt that they have and the AFFOs and the EBITDAs and all these other factors to consider. And the more stringent you become, the more you understand about stocks and bonds and all these stats, the better the stock you'll buy because it'll pass all your checks. Now, that is for conservative investing. That's for safe investing. And that's what I recommend to most people because it's not that a big deal. You don't want to gamble. Never treat the stock market as a gambling tool. Unless you've got money to burn, then it's none of my business. You do options trading and do covered calls and covered puts and whatever makes you happy in the mornings. So, but other ways of making money in the stock market are a lot more complicated. And it's if you want to make it even simpler, and you don't want to buy winners and losers, or you want to buy winners, there's always index funds called ETFs or mutual funds, which have a bucket of the winners. They choose the bucket of winners for you, and it's the average of the index. So Vanguard funds, iSeries, Schwab. There's a bunch of, like, your bank would have a whole bunch of mutual funds based off the index that you don't need a stock market broker to go through. Those are usually just bonds, but they throw in stocks as well. That would make your life easier. I do a retirement fund for myself where I have 4 major Vanguard funds. One of them is all stocks of an ETF of US and all stocks non-US. So it's basically US and then the world. And then I have US and then the world of bonds. So stocks and bonds, 2 each, one of the US. And it's I think it's an actual strategy. I don't know who came up with it. But all you do is buy equal amounts of an index fund of US stock and an index fund of non-US stock, an index fund of US bonds and an index fund of non-US bonds. And that's it. So that's retirement. Retirement's safe, easy. I don't want to think about it. Just do that. Everything else.
That's what I like about your method of investing and your methods of just making money and living the life that you want. You have multiple sources of income. You also have multiple ways of stock trading, and you have multiple investments, and you're very, very diverse when it comes to your portfolio.
Well, so this is how you get
you
rich.
Are like you have your fortress of solitude. That's what I like.
Well, this is how anyone gets rich. They have multiple streams of income, and this is what I wanted to do with you today. If you want to actually get rich, we have to start building systems in place, whether it's businesses, whether it's you're selling information like on YouTube, you're getting donations, whatever the process is, we have to get that set up, and we have to work on it every day. And this is one of the fun things we talk about, like how to live your life well. We talk about stoicism, we have athleticism, we have good diet, good sleeping, controlling your emotions. These are all good life choices to make as an adult. The person who wants to make money doesn't care about making their bed, doesn't care about hygiene, doesn't care about athleticism. You definitely should, but if you're not making money, you're dying. Money can solve a lot of problems, and you can have more problems as you get more money, but you at least have the luxury of dealing with taxes and lawyers and who has ownership of what and who's doing what with my money. That you can worry about later. So a lot of people are like, yeah, Jordan Peterson, make your bed in the morning, rule number 1. Yeah, great. Or I could wake up at 6 and start hustling and selling my whatever product online I just invented the day before.
Yeah. Even when it comes to freelancing, which is my big focus right now, Like right now, I'm working a sales job. It's an easy job. I make about $4K a month. Not great, but I'm making money. Now, on top of that, I'm also flipping items on Facebook. Facebook Marketplace is fantastic. Craigslist is fantastic. You can just find free shit. Right? You can find a piano. Same day, I went and picked up a piano. It was like a few days ago. I went and picked up a piano for free, and then took it to a music store and sold it for $100. Took me about an hour and a half. Made $100 in an hour and a half. You can just be doing that whenever you have a day off. Find a couch, find a piano, something, and sell it for more money. Now you have supplemental income. Now you're making about $250 a week on top of your normal income. So you have a total of an extra $1,000 a week or a month that you can spend on whatever you need to do, and then add freelancing on top of that, and you're prospecting clients on social media and sending DMs. Hey, I like what you do. I like this post that you made about this. Tell me, how much money are you making on your service? Because I can help you write your emails to all your subscribers. So your subscriber list, you want to generate more sales, you want to generate more clicks on your web domain, I can write emails for you. Great. Now you're selling this skill that you have, freelancing on top of the job that you're doing, on top of the Facebook market flipping, on top of this. And then you get into stocks. You got all these different sources of income. For me, I'm in a bit of a better situation because I'm working on getting my VA benefits, my disability benefits. So that's going to be an extra $1,000 a month on top of my job, on top of Facebook market flipping, on top of email copywriting. So I'm going to have multiple sources of income. And then when I get into stock trading, holy fuck, there's my there's my retirement. So there's so many ways to get out of Brokieville. If you're in Brokieville right now, you should not be accepting it. Oh, I need a better job. I need to do this. Blah, blah, blah. I got to go get a fucking degree. No, there's things you can do right now to get you money tomorrow. That's really non-negotiable. If you're in Brokieville, I don't want to say it's because you're lazy, but it's because you don't know, and also because you're lazy. So anybody that's listening to this, please get out of Brokieville. You don't deserve to be in Brokieville. Some people do. Some people are fucking lazy. Some people don't want to do anything, and they deserve to be broke. But there's things you can do now to get you money and then set up for your future self. Stoicism is fantastic, and I'm a really firm practitioner, and I love studying philosophy. I'll read meditations once a month, and I'll read How to Win Friends and Influence People once a month. I'm also studying a different sales skill to build my experience, to build this little toolbox of things that I can use to make money. So if you are in Brokieville, you have no excuse. There are tools out there. And I mean, shit, you can DM me on Smud's Discord, and I'll tell you how to make money.
Yeah, the technique you referred to was retail arbitrage, where you buy a product and sell it within the same space of, let's say, a store at another store, or you can do your own drop shipping. So you have your own product, you find your own warehouse, and you sell that directly. So it's sold at the same time, even though you don't need a warehouse for drop shipping, but it's the same concept. And I don't know if that's still a viable method, because I've seen people do that in the past where they go to Walmart, they pick up whatever, they sell it in Amazon FBA the same day. It's possible.
It's definitely still viable. I'll tell you that right now. It's possible.
Yeah. So
I know people that are doing it.
Walmart shit? Oh my God.
Yeah. You can pick up shit cheap at Walmart and just go sell it on Amazon for, 20, 30, 40, 50% profit. And it's profit.
That's true. I suppose that's money.
But I don't recommend that to anybody, because that's dubious in itself. If you're wanting to make 100% profit, there's free shit out there on Facebook, the thing that you waste time on every day, that you read your stupid aunt's update on her sick dog. Fantastic. You left a like. You're dumb. You need to be on the Facebook Marketplace and finding all the free couches on there, and then go sell the couches to some other dumbo that didn't see the free couch the first time. Now you're charging $100 for a couch.
Or explain it, and then you can charge a little bit extra.
I shouldn't say dumbo. These are your clients. These are your customers. They have money.
That's stupid shit. Bang.
All right, guys. Thank you, Zach. That's your half an hour, sadly, but we'll be more than happy to contact you. I think we should start a business channel, as we did already on the Smudcast server, and we'll talk about we can just list. I can even make a list of all the ways of making money in your side hustle and how that would work and how you set that up. And so long as you know what that is involving, because some people just can't do arbitrage or just can't do drop shipping. They don't have the tools or they don't have the means. And every business does need a little bit of startup capital, but there's other opportunities. Mm-hmm. So we should talk about that later for sure.
Absolutely. I would love to discuss that with you.
Okay. Well, thanks for your time, Zach. I'll talk to you later. And thanks for giving us half hour of your time. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, brother. Okay. Talk to you later.
Talk to you later, Steve.
See you later, bro.
All right, Sidar, how do you do, ma'am?
Hi, I am very good, actually. I'm super excited. I dropped a link tree, I dropped a watch together, because today I'm going to be talking about Andor.
Right, let me get that going for you.
Yeah. Add it to there. So what I was thinking is that we would watch the trailer first, because I'm not quite sure how many people are in the stream, or if even you have watched the trailer or know what the show's about. Because I know everyone I even saw the name Andor. I was like, I don't give a fuck. But it's really good.
All right, so sorry, there it is. Watch Together. I was looking at your logo. I was like, what is that? That's not Watch Together.
Yes, my big beautiful face.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. I'm joining. There we go.
All right, I'll let you go, since you will make sure everyone can see it.
Right. Okay, here we go. Oh no, pause.
Yay.
Pause. There we go.
There we go.
So, here. Oh, yeah, I know this.
Ooh. Oh, you've seen the trailer?
Yeah.
Yes.
To steal from the Empire? To just walk in like you belong? They're so proud of themselves. So fat and satisfied. They can't imagine that someone like me would ever get inside their house.
Cassian Andor. The Empire is choking us so slowly. We're starting not to notice. What I'm asking is this. Wouldn't you rather give it all to something real? I need all the heroes I can get.
For the greater good.
Call it what you will.
Let's call it war.
There's fermenting out there, son. Pockets of fermenting.
You're in my net. Are you a fish? Or are you a thief?
You're slipping.
I'm not slipping. I've just been hiding for too long.
As long as everyone thinks I'm an irritation, there's a good chance they'll miss what I'm really doing.
What are you really doing?
This is what revolution looks like.
I'm tired of losing.
Geez, where were all those guys
boy.
during the movies?
Where were they?
Oh yeah, they got blown away.
gosh.
Yeah, that's right. They all just blew up.
They all blew up. Well, a couple of those survived, a couple of the main people, but this show is not afraid of just offing people it makes you introduce you to. So the tradition of Rogue One continues.
As long as there's no really bad lines like "I'm a rebel, we rebel." It's like, yeah, that's.
Actually, that's what's wild about it is that they save all the best shit for in the show. Like there's a couple of bangers in the trailer. I think Mon Mothma talking about how they won't notice what she's doing, but there's at least 3 separate speeches that are well written, inspiring, very relevant. The cool thing about the show is it takes the rebel cause super seriously, and kind of just, there's not a single thing of like fan service, like a wink or a nod to the audience. It's just that this universe exists and this is what logically would play out. And you have beat cops going to brothels in this. That's the opening scene. It opens in a brothel and he gets into a tussle. And Andor, as he does, it sets up the moral grayness of the story right off the bat. But it's not in your face about it. So he gets attacked by 2 guards, and in him flipping out on them because they're just harassing him, he accidentally kills one of them, and so the other one gets pissed off. But then, without a word, the surviving security guard realizes what the fuck is going on, that he just witnessed a murder. He doesn't have his gun, and Andor has the gun, and then he starts begging for his life, and then without any other kind of like unnecessary wording, he just kills him. And like it perfectly sets the tone for the rest of the series, because it treats you with that much respect for you to realize what's going on and why he's scared. I
have seen reviews and people's opinions when the first few episodes came out. They were lackluster, and then as the show went on, I know when people say, it gets better if you just watch it more. In fact, a lot of people did say, yeah, the later episodes got a lot better. And compared to the other stuff we got this year for streaming services, whether it's fantasy or sci-fi, this seems to be the show that people are talking about. And I'm at least happy to hear that, because Rogue One was sort of that genre-breaking or formula-breaking Star Wars film, which looked great. It didn't attract me enough to want to watch it, but I'm glad they're like, hey, this is creative, this is cool, let's do something with that. And here we have Andor. So I don't know if that's a good move to do another prequel, or they just wanted to bring back the cast that worked in a certain way. So like I'm assuming like Saw Gerrera is going to like discover the Gorgolet or whatever the hell that thing is called, and you're like, ooh, I can now.
Oh, it doesn't show up.
No, oh,
No, actually, what's funny is because I watched Rogue One after this, is the Gorgolet was a rewrite, because in the show, if the writers had it their way, they would just fucking play the screams of dying children into their ears until he breaks and tells them, because that actually happens in the show, where the Empire is interrogating one of the characters who doesn't really need to be interrogated. She doesn't really even know anything. And they're like, yeah, so this is a massacre we did on this planet, and they had really sad cries, so we're just gonna play this in your ears. And they don't tell the audience, they don't add it in there, but you get to watch the actor just kind of go act their fucking heart out about listening to this. And
really,
so
in case you don't know, what the military does to get people to talk, like this is like in Kuwait, they don't do waterboarding. They don't do any like drugs or anything like that. What they do is they get recordings. I think I saw this on YouTube. They get recordings of 2 hours of guys butchering and killing rabbits. And they just put it on a loop. And after a day of that, the people in the cells will tell you anything you ask them.
I know. psychological violence. But yeah, it's kind of on the same level because Saul Guerrero is in the show, and he's being his dramatic bitch ass self. But God, he gets a moment to shine too. But I wanted to go back from my ADHD brain. It's too far. The lackluster acceptance of the shows is because the show is not separated its episodes well. So the episode should be watched according to who directed it. So the first 3 episodes is by one director, and that should be watched as one thing. Because when it's like that, the first episode is just the first act of a story. So it feels very unfulfilling, and I was on the tail end of watching it, and it really sucked when it was in between those stories, but now that it's all one thing together, it is absolutely amazing to watch it through. So I think in the future, I heard, I don't know who said this, I think honestly maybe it was even Angry Joe, is that they should just release episodes. They should release everything but like the last 2 episodes. Let people enjoy it, and then let the stir craze, and then they go and have the ending ones, because it'd fare better. I think it hurt Andor this time.
Right, and this is the problem with prequels in general, because the audience is sort of knows what's going to happen at the end because the movie's coming out or has come out. So there's not as much tension as you would expect, because
you would hope, but they're actually good writers and they address that. So actually, all of the majority of the show, the stakes are on third-party characters that the show gets you to like. It never does that thing where it's like, oh no, Andor slipped and he like fell off the side and it's a death fake out, and you go over and he sees fine. No, they never do that, but they will murk everyone he loves, and they get you to love him really quickly.
That sounds awesome, because you have to deal with continuity, and the fact that you have a good writer or writers that know what they're doing. It's like, oh yeah, we can't kill him off. We can't actually do that. So
yeah, you can't dangle it in front of their head, and his purpose in the story is actually quite interesting. Is Andor isn't the glamorous main character. His role from Rogue One as a secondary character that pushes another hero to the forefront still continues in Andor. So he's in like every series, he's important and integral, but he's hyping someone else up. So there's consistency in his behavior through Rogue One from the series, and it's just, it's great. It's beautiful. I know, competency. Really, that's all it is, but someone gave a shit, and they're like, you know what, we actually don't really care about the Force stuff, we like the nitty-gritty Star Wars, and the most interesting time is when the Empire is being Empire, and isn't it fun to be rebels against something that's so clearly evil, so unambiguously evil, and also kind of scary. Oh, that's another thing the show does. It makes the Empire terrifying. And not in just that the stormtroopers can't hit anything, but the system of the Empire is just fucking cruel. And at one point in one of the arcs, Andor he's laying low because he just pulled off a big heist from the Empire, and so he's living off his rewards from it. And he's walking down the beach on this Canto Bight looking town, and there's stormtroopers arresting people who's shouting anti-imperial propaganda, and Andor's just walking by, and the stormtrooper's like, hey, what are you doing? Are you here with him? And he's like, no. What? Huh? And so Andor gets racially profiled, sent to jail, and then got sentenced to 6 years in a labor camp for just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. and like it's very it's a little bit eerily close to real life, but the inspiration is so visible but respectful. It's art imitating life,
So would you say this is probably one of the, not the better forms of Star Wars overall, but maybe in recent years that we've gotten?
Yeah. I feel like watching this, it feels like playing KOTOR, because that's how serious they are, and those little tiny bits of the universe is filled in. But also, everyone's been joking that we're pretty sure the writers read a lot of fan fiction of Rogue One,
Really?
because there's like little Star Wars fan fiction is really back, and there's little terms that we all use for things, and he's using them in the show, and we're like, you read that? You were on AO3, you motherfucker. We know.
Okay.
So it's a good time. Oh, yeah.
You know, if you're going to be a writer, it's always good to read the trash that a bad writer would write, and just don't do that. That's one way to not be a bad writer. Just don't do what the other bad guys are doing. So.
Oh yeah. Well, to make a quick defense of fan fiction, at least for going in, it's to skip setup and get to the fun, juicy parts, so it can be a low stakes playground. That's what I say.
Because,
and like, sure, there's people who have at it. But.
Yeah, because as I said, it's a slow build up. The first few episodes aren't that exciting, and I've read books like that. I just finished a book actually last week like that, and that's sort of like, would I recommend this to someone? It's like, if you don't mind it to be boring for the first few episodes, and you've got no time, you got an hour to kill every day.
That's the thing. Well, I mean, it feels like an HBO, like House of the Dragon, whatnot, which is kind of slow, which the quote unquote boring. I didn't find it boring. I thought it was really interesting. I thought it was hilarious seeing this uptight security worker who want to take revenge on Andor for killing those two guys who were assholes, and he fucks everything up. So, my gosh. I'm so sorry. I lost my train of thought.
But you would say that is a show worth watching. It's slow. It gets there. Then there's all this world to flesh out, and we see the world of Star Wars, or at least the world of certain parts of Star Wars that have not been fleshed out as much as this has.
Yes, it's really nice like that. Honestly, it's only the first episode that kind of goes into it, and when it has its big climactic episodes, so the third episodes, they're just on the edge of your seat, going with it. None of the logic is always sound, and I was never pulled out by something being nonsensical or something awkward. There was no, like, oh my god, you can catch up with Leia, like she looks like she's 2 years old. No, so they're trying to do a heist, and in order to get out of it, of course, TIE fighters will come down and shoot them down when they try to escape. So they use the planet's natural, they have, rings. There's some celestial event. And it's going to make it really hard for TIE fighters to scramble in the air. So they're going to escape when that event happens, because it's a big celebration. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that's it. That one line. You didn't have to we got to the blockade, now all the problems disappear and everyone stops shooting at us. They actually had a plan. Oh boy, it's great.
So I'm assuming that this show is going to get renewed, or has been renewed, and it's going to keep going. What were the other shows that? I mean, there was The Mandalorian, which I think is still going on.
The Mandalorian has season 3 greenlit. I'm not sure when it's supposed to come out. It's supposed to be soon. I hope that I've kind of been upset with how much member berries have been seeping into The Mandalorian. I like the quote-unquote filler episodes. I think those should be the entire point of the show. But,
wow, that's a pretty strange thing to say about we want filler episodes. Like, of what? It just doesn't matter. Just fill it in.
No, just problem of the week. I just want him to go somewhere new and meet interesting people every week and have something. I mean, there could be a framing device. I don't need there to be Mandalore's pretty cool, but I don't need Ahsoka running around. Just that kind of muddles it up.
Really?
No, I don't like her business coming in. I think she's getting her own show, but The Mandalorian is just so simple and fun and just, I don't know, things get too, it's the same problem with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where everything is just starting to get knitted together and it's going to become an incomprehensible web of whatever. And I just want to keep it simple and clean. And also, the more I have noticed with Andor and with The Mandalorian, the more they get away from pre-established characters, the better they're allowed to write things. The more they have like member berries and Ahsoka and all these things in, there's going to be more cooks in the kitchen, and that's when shit gets bad.
Interesting, because a lot of people praise the fact that she was back in some capacity outside of her animated version, and that's when people paid attention more, because like, oh, there's this female Jedi in this world where Jedi should not exist. And that was the big, ooh, how did that happen? So I don't know. It sounds like you gotta walk a fine line between doing those, lightsabers, X-wings, like here's this, here's that, but off to the side. Whereas if you have them as a main character or a secondary character in a subplot, it detracts from the formula that is The Mandalorian. Now, there's other shows like the Book of Boba Fett, which don't know if that is a worthwhile endeavor to spend your time with.
No. I only watched the episodes that were Mandalorian Season 3 snuck into the Book of Boba Fett.
Okay.
Because those are entertaining, because the Mandalorian, he gets an old... his ship is destroyed, so he's repairing this old Naboo fighter from the Phantom Menace. He fixes that up with the old lady from Tatooine and gives it a spin, and it's fun. And like, I like that, and I appreciate that, because it makes sense, because he's looking at this thing, and it's a reference to the original, or the prequels. But yeah, they would be around, and he'd be like, yeah, this is a piece of junk, and it still exists in the world, and I got it for like $100, and I'm gonna fix it up and fly it around. I know, I'm sorry, I lost my thought.
Okay. So it sounds like, Andor is the one Star Wars property, or at least the Disney property, that is working, and people want more of it. Compare that to I think you mentioned House of the Dragon, and there's Rings of Power. Like, this Andor seems to be the only one that's popular. I think House of the Dragon is popular too, but Andor's getting more press. It's more liked. It gets more likes. I don't know if that's a comparable thing we can say. Comparing George R. R. Martin.
More attention?
Well, I don't know. I haven't measured it, but I'm guessing. I'm listening to my friends. I'm listening to my family members who have watched these shows. I don't watch them because I have other things to do with my life. And they're like, Andor is meh, and then it got better. And then House of the Dragon got boring. Rings of Power just put you to sleep within the first hour. There's other shows out there, but those were the big ones that came out this year, and Andor is still being talked about, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's amazing, because like the most interesting about it is that it feels like the author had something to comment on. Like, they weren't just making a funny haha comic book. They put some meaning behind it. I would say it's the same thing like Joker, or the Joker movie. How there was like it or agree with it or whatever, there was some sort of message behind it from the author that elevated the piece. And I think it's the same thing for Andor. I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah, no. So long as there's resolution to storylines with any story, at least there's some payoff to understand that something was worth either a success or a failure at the end. That's what I look at for all these stories. When I talk about a story that is slow, like Andor, even if it's built up, like, say, slice of life in this very mundane way, and people are just going about their business, like he's a guy who's trying to bring down the Empire, but he's getting around all these problems and obstacles. So long as there's a resolution at the end of the story or the end of the series, that's my main concern. Because if you just have a bunch of people walking around doing stuff, it's like, okay, that's great, it's in the Star Wars universe, people are dying, fine, but what's the point? What's the value in all this? What's the message? And it seems to be they're trying to create a world that at least one writer is like, you know what, there was something there in Rogue One I saw that was too subdued because it had to be a movie. It had to be this 2-hour, 3-hour experience. But I want to play in that world a bit more and give it some value. So that's where I see like House of the Dragon the same way. They're both prequels, but it's like there's a lot of opportunity for drama and characters to grow and change that you did not get in a movie format.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really hard to get that satisfying. And Andor actually delivers. Like the last episode is so cathartic because what it really is about, it's about the formal formation of the rebellion. So at the start of the show, it's more just pockets of people being rebellious, resisting a little bit. And some people kind of come together. That's what Mon Mothma is in the show for. She's on the Coruscant political side about supporting and creating the rebellion. So the very end is the final push. What's the final fuck up that the Empire do that really just makes every single citizen pissed, and it turns into a riot. And so they just start beating the shit out of the clones and whatnot, and then it's a massacre because they get they're like, okay, we're gonna shoot because I know you guys are pissed and you're just throwing rocks at us, but they go and systematically wipe out the whole town, and then you see how that rolls in, and then at the very end, Andor's 100% in, and that's the resolution. Which, I mean, I know I'm like telling you spoilers and whatnot, but I shouldn't. If telling you the end of a story ruins it, it's a bad story. So,
is there a rumor going around that Adam Driver is somehow coming back to Star Wars, whether it's in one of these series or a movie? I seem to remember hearing about that. Was he even close to the timelines of any of these series or shows?
No. He would either be like a year or so old in The Mandalorian, and he would not exist in Andor because Andor is 5 years before A New Hope. That's what it says. That's the first card. It says 5 years BBY.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I just found it surprising that they, or at least there's the rumor that he was being called back, and it's like, whoa, where is he gonna? Is it a new series? Is it gonna be in something like a time jump or time skip?
I mean, Kylo was the only really successful thing from the sequels.
Yeah.
So if they actually delivered on The Force Awakens Kylo, I would have so much fun. Oh my gosh, I want Hot Topic Kylo back. that stuff was funny. Oh my god, because people need to embrace it sometimes. Embrace the ridiculousness of Star Wars in a serious way, kind of satirical almost.
Right.
It's not that the characters are stupid, it's that they're just a little bit quirky. I mean, that's what all Star Wars characters are. They're a bit quirky.
Hopefully not in the James Woods, or, well, how do we say quirky without being offensive? It's like
special.
Well, yeah, but people they want them to be clever and funny and cutesy and passive aggressive and jokey and all that sort of personality crap.
Yeah,
gets irritating at times.
It ain't cute no more, guys. Being a bitch ain't a look no more.
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, I think that's all the time we have for Andor and Miss Sidar. Thank you so much. I appreciate talking about something that you actually enjoy. That was surprisingly good, because every time someone opens it, like Willow, people in the chat are like, "Yeah, Willow came out." It's like, "Oh my god, really?" It's like it was garbage. Like, oh,
it was garbage. Yeah. Can I leave with one little piece of advice for everyone on that note of something is your apathy is more painful than your hate, and if you do not want to support something, the worst thing you can do is never mention it and just bask in what you love. And put your money where your mouth is and put it towards what you love. Anyway, that's all.
Good stuff. All right. Thank you so much for your time, Sidar. It's been a while since we've had you on, and
I hope to be around a bit more. Thank you so much.
I'll be happy to put your link as soon as I'm done the stream, and I got all these organization problems. Apparently we're doing a second stream tomorrow because there's other people who at the last minute wanted to come on, but then at the last minute they couldn't, and it's like, what?
Mm-hmm.
So I gotta do all this micromanagement, but do stick around, and well, actually no, you could leave if you want. You don't have to stay, but I'll be happy to talk to you later. Hey Matt, are you there? I see you're still there. You've been there all day or all evening.
I my link in the chat, and I'll see you. Bye bye.
Okay, see you.
Yeah, I've been creepily lurking in the corner here.
Like every time outside of the stock talks, you would probably have something to say because we all talk about stories.
I talk about stocks too.
Really? I didn't know that. Oh wow.
Oh yeah, I'm big into crypto and investing and all that stuff.
Good stuff. I'd be happy to eat your ears off.
I will say I really enjoyed Sidar's talk because I thought I was the only one who liked Andor.
Yeah, no, you know what? My dad, who's been watching, he's retired, he has lots of time on his hands. He's been watching all these streaming shows. He's like, Andor's okay. And then it gets, like, later on in the year, he's like, Andor's pretty good. Like, didn't you watch, like, House of the Dragon and all these other... It's like, yeah, but I got bored. Andor's good. You're like, whoa, Disney property.
Well, you know what's funny about Andor is that it's a very deliberately paced show, and it's kind of like in a 3-episode arc. So every 3 episodes, like a story is told, a mini story. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have to wade through 2 episodes of setup before that pays off.
Ooh.
And a lot of people don't have the patience for that. And it's 12 episodes, right? So like every 3rd episode, you're getting the payoff for the previous 2 episodes. And a lot of people were complaining that it was boring. But one of my favorite shows of all time is The Wire on HBO.
Yeah.
And the first seasons of that show, which is, I think, 12 episodes long, it took them 9 episodes to get good. Like, everything else before that was just, like, really boring setup. And I can remember when I was first watching that show, I was considering just stopping it. And then, like, episode 9 hit, and I was like, whoa. And then I was, like, so into that show for, like, the rest of its run. Mm-hmm. And Andor is very similar. It's like, if you're okay with the slow pacing of the show and you like diving into that world of Star Wars that we don't get to see in like the big flashbang adventure films, it's a very fascinating show. So it was fun to get to hear Sidar's take on it because I've been alone on my hill defending Andor as a good Star Wars show.
The panelists on your show don't enjoy it?
Oh no, they hate it. I was the only one on there who was like defending the show. And speaking of which, I was the only one of the few voices on Twitter who was saying like, hey, the show's actually good. And everyone who follows me is like, oh, you're a Disney shill, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, no. Oh, that's not.
Yeah,
that
happens.
That is never one thing you want to be associated with as a shill for. But
I'll also tell you, like, Andor is the type of show that should have been bingeable. Like, if Disney had just put out all 12 episodes and let people just burn through it, people would have had a better experience watching that show. But instead, they put out the first 3 episodes and then they went week to week. And it was like, you know, if you're a very slowly paced show that takes 2 episodes to get into any type of payoff, that week to week format is killer for your audience because like they're just going to tune out because they get bored.
Yeah, this is the problem, not with shows, but even books. I did a book review last week. It was by a Japanese author called Never Let Me Go, which was actually a movie. They turned it into a movie in 2010. Who the hell was Keira Knightley and Andrew Garfield, I think. I never watched it, but the first half of that book is just slice of life, boring. There's just a bunch of kids going to high school, and you're just like, this is not fun. And then you get to the next half or the last quarter, and there's all this resolution. There's all these tie-ups of plots, and characters get things going. And it's like, wow, this is what I was expecting. But because the writer's good, and he broke the rules of attention and pacing and all these other things, he knew what he was doing, at least to tell that kind of story. So would I recommend that book, or would I recommend Andor to people who are expecting something else? No. If you want a more competent, articulate story that has payoff that you have to wait for, then yes, you'll love it. So it's kind of that flavor that you said, yeah, I'd rather just binge it like when you first started to binge Netflix shows back in the day. And I guess their release schedule has been wonky as a result.
Well, now that the entire series is available, now's the time to watch it.
Yeah.
Like I seriously considered waiting until like all the episodes were out to just sit down and watch the whole thing. But I was like, nah, stuff's gonna get spoiled for me, so I need to watch it week to week.
Ah, cool. Okay. So you mentioned Twitter. Is that what we're going to be talking about today? Because there's all kinds of things happening every day on Twitter. I probably missed a lot. I was busy all day today. Does anything happen today that I missed that it's big news?
Well, I mean, like there's stuff happening in the world that's being reported on Twitter, but like the kind of meta thing I wanted to talk about was just how different the platform is.
I know.
Now that Musk has taken it over. So I got on Twitter back in 2011, right? And I didn't really get into it. Like I didn't quite understand Twitter, and I wasn't really big on social media until 2018, I guess. And the reason I got on Twitter in 2018 was to complain about The Last Jedi, because I needed some type of outlet with which to complain. And so like after I got out of the theater of The Last Jedi, I was like, I kind of want to complain about this, but I don't really have anyone to talk about with it, because I just moved to Las Vegas. I didn't really know anyone out here. So I was like, you know what? I've never been on Twitter. I know people go there to complain about stuff, so I'm going to go on Twitter and complain. And so I started, just tweeting and figuring out the platform, figuring out how it worked. And before I knew it, like I was a nobody. I was an independent author, former filmmaker. And so like I didn't have like a huge following. I had something like 2,000 followers, something like that. But it wasn't very active. And I just started like tweeting out my critiques of The Last Jedi. And before I knew it, all types of new people started following me. All types of new people who had the same exact complaints started commenting on my posts. And they were like, I felt the same way, but I didn't know how to articulate it. And then I started writing articles, kind of like going into detail about like the myriad of problems that the movie had, and tweeting those out. And then people would read those articles and retweet them and do YouTube videos about them. And that kind of got me into the whole like YouTube thing. And I met the co-hosts of my podcast on Twitter, became friends with them. Turns out they were locals. And so like Twitter brought me into my current social circle. And for a while there, Twitter was like a lot of fun. And then Trump got elected, and Twitter started to become a very kind of oppressive place, right? Where like it got very political. It was always kind of political, but it got extremely political on the administration side, and I mean administration of like Twitter itself. And there were all types of like shifting terms of service where like you never knew what was okay to say and what wasn't, and like you'd spend a lot of time on there and get banned. Get your account locked for saying like really innocuous stuff. And it kind of reached a head during the lockdown times, excuse me, when, Twitter just started banning people for like retweeting stuff that they didn't agree with. And I stuck around. I still like Twitter. I was never one to kind of like court controversy. I was always someone who, like, if I disagree with someone, I'll be respectful about it. I won't name call. I won't even use foul language on my Twitter account or anything like that. And if somebody just tweets out an opinion and they didn't tag me in it, and I somehow come upon it in my timeline, I don't respond, because I'm like, hey, that's their opinion. They're free to have it. But if they respond to one of my tweets and I disagree, I'm happy to debate. And for a while there, it was actually possible to have debate on Twitter, until like the fascist regime came in and started squashing all dissenting opinion. And it really affected how much fun Twitter was and how much information you could get from it. Because it used to be you went to Twitter for your news, right? It was like the late breaking news thing where it's like you could find up-to-date information. You could find people on the ground telling you what was happening in like all around the world. And it stopped being that. And so like when we had heard that Elon Musk was going to buy it, everyone was like, yeah, right, whatever, who cares, blah, blah, blah. But now that he's actually bought it and he's made these changes, the difference is like night and day. It's like you can actually have conversations on Twitter again without worrying about getting your account banned, as long as like you're not, doing anything egregiously bad. But you can actually have civil debate. You can have contrary opinions. You can have like opinions that are outside of the mainstream narrative and actually like fact check like powerful regimes that aren't used to getting fact checks, and before.
Like the president?
And yeah, like the president, exactly. Well, I mean, a Democrat president anyway. If it's a Republican president, then anything goes. But there's been so much stuff lately that's just been so fascinating to watch unfold, like the whole Twitter files thing. I don't know if you followed that at all. But basically, Elon allowed journalists to come in and comb through all of the previous regimes' like internal like messages and documents and stuff about their decision to suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story. And I don't care what like where on the political spectrum you fall. The fact that like government, whether it be a campaign or like politicians or whatever, had direct access to a big tech media platform and was colluding with them to suppress true stories and sow misinformation about those true stories to affect the outcome of an election, that's a big story, right? That's something that's in the public interest that reporters should be reporting on. And the fact that that's allowed to happen on Twitter now, where journalists can actually like get truth out to the public and there's no way to suppress it or spin it, is amazing. And I've been kind of reconnecting with a lot of my old Twitter friends, many of whom left the platform because it was so oppressive. They've come back, and we just can't get over how much fun Twitter is now, because like we can actually have actual conversations, we can have debates, we can have these exchanges that not 3 or 4 months ago would have gotten your account banned, right? You can question COVID policy, you can question the administration, you can question all types of things now and actually get your opinion out there without fear of being retaliated against. I think that that's so important. And to see how the mainstream media has gone after Elon Musk for the sin of allowing people to actually speak their minds has been hilarious. It's been absolutely hilarious. So yeah, I've been extremely entertained by Twitter right now.
I do recall your Medium post on Last Jedi. I think that's where I first heard of you. I think we connected through LiteratureDevil, I think. I can't recall exactly when I first...
LiteratureDevil, yeah.
I can't exactly remember the first time we associated, but I do remember reading that excellent article you made and learning about you from there. In case you guys don't know, Matt is in charge of the Salty Nerd podcast, and there's a link right below in the description for checking that out. I've been on it a few times. It's very similar to what we do here, only you guys are a lot more organized than we are. That's for sure.
Are we? I don't know.
Maybe.
We don't take our jobs as seriously. I'll tell you that much. We get together once a week. We get drunk and we talk about movies, and we record ourselves doing it, and then we put it out for the masses to make fun of us. So.
Yeah. But I will.
It's actually it's a comedy show. We just we sit there and we just make fun of bad movies or sometimes good movies, and we hope other people enjoy our takes on it.
Right, and I do remember some of the things that were going on Twitter. I do recall I made a video about oh boy, the girl from Who's the Boss,
Alyssa Milano.
Miss Milano. We already knew she was weird. And we knew a lot of these celebrities that don't have two brain cells to rub together. They're going to say dumb shit. Doesn't matter what time of day. Doesn't matter what the topic. But for her to sell one of the nicest, amazing, high-performance vehicles you could buy, which is about, I think it was $100,000 American.
He sold her Tesla, yeah.
This self-driving car does all this amazing stuff. And there were some issues in the summertime of you can't charge your car. The governor was recommending you don't charge your car because of brownouts or whatever. She just says, okay, well, I'm gonna sell my Tesla and get a Volkswagen. Again, good car, nothing wrong with that, but it's a downgrade, right? You're downgrading your...
Oh, it was an electric vehicle Volkswagen, right? It's one of those cars from Europe.
Yes, it's still...
So she traded in her Tesla for a different electronic vehicle in protest of what Elon Musk was doing on Twitter.
On Twitter, which doesn't make any sense to me. Like, just because the same guy owns two companies, and you don't like the guy for whatever he's doing on one company, like, that's a car. As soon as you drive it off the lot, you lose 20% of your investment.
Well, the funniest thing about that was the responses she got, because she thought she was virtue signaling, and she's used to old Twitter where she shielded from a lot of the criticism. But I don't know. Did you see like the responses she got to that tweet?
She went on The View to say, "Oh my God, it was horrible." It was like, honey.
Well, people pointed out that Volkswagen was started by Adolf, the guy who started the Nazi Party, and she was completely unaware of that she's now supporting a company that was started by Nazis in protest of a guy who's defending free speech. And so like the level of ignorance and hypocrisy on Alyssa Milano's level, I mean, she's been like this for a long time. I don't know if you remember her fallout with Rose McGowan, her former co-star on Charmed.
Oh, yes, I do remember that. Yeah.
So Rose McGowan had long been kind of like coming out against Harvey Weinstein because he raped her.
Oh, dear.
Or sexually assaulted her or whatever. And no one would stick up for Rose McGowan, including Alyssa Milano. Like, she was on the side of Harvey Weinstein until he got publicly canceled. And Rose McGowan had been screaming at the top of her lungs that Harvey Weinstein was a rapist for years. And when I worked in Hollywood, it was an open secret, like how much of a scumbag Harvey Weinstein was. Like, everyone knew the stories. And Alyssa Milano kept quiet about it, even though she knew it. She knew it to be true, but she didn't want to hurt her career, right? So make no mistake about it, she's not a good person.
Yeah, no, there's a certain lack of intelligence, and for people to talk about topics they don't understand, whether it's politics or science or whatever, always strikes me as odd. And it doesn't matter where in the world you are. This happens with everyone. They will tout some line that someone else said, which sounds like, yeah, maybe it is good to, be safe and get an injection in your arm just for the sake of it, because you never know what's going to happen, not knowing what this thing actually does to you, because apparently every injection that's ever been shot into someone's arm is safe over the past 80 years or so. We've had.
I mean, that's the importance of free speech, though, right? Where let's say I tweet out something ignorant, right? Where like I think I'm smart and I say something on Twitter, and instantly I get responses that prove me wrong, right? And I can look at those responses and be like, oh, I was not aware of this. I did not know this. I really was wrong. And so I learned something, and I grew as a human being, all because people had the freedom to correct me. Now, they might not have been civil about it, but they might have had a point, So free speech is an education tool. It's something that allows people to learn, right? It's not just about expression. And the problem with the former Twitter regime was that it was an echo chamber. And so all these people who were spouting, COVID misinformation and political misinformation, all this other stuff, they thought that was the truth, when in fact they were the ones who were propagating lies, because there was no one around to challenge them. And if someone did dare to challenge them, they'd get either shadow banned or blocked or like whatever. And to Elon's credit, he saw this happening, and he's not like a right winger. He's like a center leftist, I guess you'd say. But he came along and he saw, hey, there's a serious lack of dialogue on this social media platform that's supposed to be all about free speech. And so the fact that he put his own money up to buy this company in order to change it inherently at its core, at its roots, is like probably one of the biggest things to happen to our planet in a long time, because Twitter is not just an American company, it's a worldwide company. And when you have freedom of speech for individuals across the planet, that's like the biggest thing that's the type of thing that can topple governments. And that's why government has been so scared about this change. And that's why people are going after Elon. If you look at all of his stuff like Starlink, Neuralink, Tesla, all of his like big endeavors are meant to better the world in some way. Like, he wants to go to Mars and start a colony up there. He wants to affordably create space flight. He wants to give internet to everyone. He wants to help people who are blind to see, and people who are unable to walk, who are paralyzed, to walk again. And now he's like, hey, I want to give people who don't have a voice the ability to speak and be heard. And to the mainstream media and to the elite power class out there, that is the most dangerous thing anyone can do. because the last thing that these people want is for their ideas to actually be challenged and for them to actually have to defend undefendable ideas. And under that philosophy, Twitter has been on fire lately. It's been so much fun because, number one, if you have a different opinion, you don't have to be afraid about getting canceled or banned. And number two, you can actually have debates and you can, challenge your own ideas and other people's ideas and stuff like that. And it's really fantastic. And I'm excited to see like how Elon's going to continue to change the platform to make it a lot more equitable across the board. Like, I'm a blue check mark on there. I've been a blue check mark for some time. And it used to be like a very elite thing to have like a blue check on Twitter. It was very hard to get. And now he's like, hey, I'm going to let anyone get a check mark. You pay $8 a month, you do a little bit of identity verification, and boom, you're going to have a blue check. And I'm perfectly fine with that. I didn't like the tiers, like, the class system on Twitter that was there before. I think that the more people who are verified, the harder it is to trick people with bot farms and stuff like that. So I just think that a lot of his plans, even though they've been highly criticized and, people have made fun of him for some of his missteps or whatever, but, he's only been at this like a month. Like he bought Twitter at the beginning of November. And look at like how far we've come.
I like how they were arguing, well, he doesn't know software. He doesn't understand how to run a software company. It's like, this is the guy who helped build PayPal. He does his own math when he was launching rockets. Like he explained that he had to find a chief engineer or a chief rocket guy for SpaceX.
Well, also, like the type of software that Twitter is, it's not rocket science, right? No. It's not like SpaceX type stuff. It's basically like, like it's a blogging platform that, just displays people's posts.
Yeah.
It's not complex. Like, did you see that whiteboard that he tweeted an image of, like where he sat down with all of his engineers and kind of laid out Twitter's algorithm? It was like the most basic thing that you could possibly hope to have for like a piece of software. It's not difficult to do.
I remember when we were all using MSN Messenger and then MSN Live and then Twitter came by. And it's like, oh, just use Twitter because it's just the same idea. You have a little message. Instead of it being subscription-based, it's public, and you can go wherever that URL is for that person's name. And if you don't like that person, you just stop going there. That's that simple. It's just so basic that...
Well, if you read Matt Taibbi's, like the Twitter Files thread that he released, so he started off by kind of giving like a brief history of Twitter. It was like, hey, this was meant to be a platform that people around the world could use to like instantly communicate with each other. And Twitter, a lot of people kind of dismiss Twitter because it's been like a money loser for so long. But the thing about Twitter that has an advantage over stuff like Facebook, Instagram, all this other stuff, is that, when news happens around the world, it breaks on Twitter. People can, take pictures or video, throw up a tweet or a tweet thread, and actually give you like a real-time play-by-play of what's happening on the ground in certain places. Like, the war in the Ukraine, like you saw tons of Twitter threads on the ground of stuff happening whenever there's like violence in the Middle East or like, some type of thing that like a riot that happens in the United States, like whatever the case may be, you see that reported on Twitter almost instantly. And you have so many citizen journalists on Twitter who like aren't associated with a newspaper or a mainstream news network like CNN or whatever. And yet they're able to get actual news to the masses as long as people follow them. And one of the great things about Twitter is the viral nature of it, where if you break a story on there that's of public interest, other journalists, whether they be citizen journalists or mainstream journalists, will latch onto that story and like retweet you and make you go viral and show you to their followers. And that's how stuff gets beyond the control of corporate censors, or at least now it does, because before Twitter was actually suppressing stuff like the Hunter Biden laptop thing. They actually used some type of feature that they had built in to prevent people from DMing each other those links. Like you can even send the New York Post link to people through private direct messages. It was really shady stuff. And then it just came out that Jim Baker, who's Twitter's like deputy general counsel, and he used to be the general counsel for the FBI, who was directly linked to all the Russiagate stuff with Trump, where like he propagated the Steele dossier and all this other like really shady stuff to go after Trump. He just moved over to Twitter, and he was the one who was preventing the reporters from getting access to a lot of these Twitter files that about the Hunter Biden laptop. And when Elon found out about it, he questioned the guy and immediately fired him because he realized this guy was doing some really shady stuff. So like Twitter was just in bed with the deep state for like a really long time, and they were doing their bidding, whether knowingly or not. But, you know, it was obvious that the higher ups were in bed with the Democrat Party to suppress any opposition to their candidates, their ideas, their policies. And now that all that's changing, now that you're actually able to question them, it's just so much more of a fun place to be, in my opinion.
I did see a YouTube posting by Rubin, I think. He has his own YouTube.
Dave Rubin,
yeah. And he had an interview with one of the founders, or the founder of Twitter, and it was from a CNN interview. And this guy was asking him, hey, can you just post whatever you want? And there's no moderation.
The Matt Lauer questioning Jack Dorsey.
Matt Lauer, remember that guy? Jeez, that's been a while. But
he got Me Too'd.
Yeah, he was asking all the right questions, and the guy was like, no, we don't control anything. You say whatever you like, and if you don't like it, you just
One of the funny things about Jack Dorsey is, like, if you look at the Twitter files, he basically was just a figurehead. He didn't actually have any real power. And so, like, when they were suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story, Jack Dorsey was actually completely out of the loop. It was all going through Vijaya Gadde, who was like Twitter's like top lawyer at the time and head of the health and safety department or something like that. Mm-hmm. And she was the same lawyer who was on that Joe Rogan episode with Tim Pool and Jack Dorsey.
Oh,
and
that's right.
If you just watch that video where Tim Pool is basically taking her to task about like their misgendering policy and like, you know, their bias and all that stuff, it's a very fascinating like video because like you can tell that Tim Pool's just nailing her on every point, and she just lawyers her way out of it. And it's just like, yeah, you know, so what? This is what I believe, and this is what we think is right. But yeah, Twitter was suppressing stuff for a long time, but it really wasn't until Trump won where politicians started leaning on these big tech companies. It's like, you better make sure that this doesn't happen again. Where like we saw this big shift, and social media became like almost Stalinist. Like it was very, very restrictive. It, like, squashed the voices of so many people. And the alternatives that sprung up, you know, you had Gab at first, and then Gab got deplatformed, and then you went to Parler, and once Parler started picking up steam, they got deplatformed by Apple and Google. And now you have like Getter and Truth Social. Those are the newer ones, but you know, like if things hadn't changed, that they'd have probably been on the chopping block too. Yeah, like, so like there are no good alternatives to something like Twitter. And now that it's actually kind of finding an equilibrium and people on both sides of the fence are able to speak freely as opposed to just one side, it's becoming a real place, like a real marketplace of ideas. And I found it fascinating to see like just all the different voices in my feed that like not 1 month ago, like I'd never seen, you know, like I'd follow them, but like they wouldn't show up in my feed, right? Now, lots of stuff is showing up in the feed. The trending topic stuff isn't curated anymore. It's actually like topics that are actually trending for a change. You know, it's not all like left-wing talking points. There's so much cool stuff. And you know, Elon has plans to allow for longer form video, for podcast uploads, and revenue shares with creators and stuff like that.
It sounds like it's becoming the next TikTok.
Well, I think it's actually going to go beyond TikTok. I think it's going to be a YouTube competitor, actually, because not only, like, Twitter's found a lot of success with spaces and, like, audio content. And so if it became, like, a podcasting platform, similar to what Spotify is, where you could listen to music or radio or podcast directly through the app, in addition to, like, live spaces where you could do Q&As and seminars and stuff like that, it would corner the audio market. But if they also introduced long-form video stuff that introduced some type of rev share that was competitive with YouTube, but without all the speech restrictions, I think you'd see a big migration from YouTube over to Twitter, and YouTube might actually have to change their policies in order to compete. So there's all types of stuff in the pipeline that I know Elon wants to do, but I'm here for it, man. I think Twitter's going to be the place to be.
Yeah, well, I'm still on it. I've been using it ever since. Yeah, it's a lot more fun, I would say, the past few months, and a lot of weirdos are still out there on either side, so that's nice to see. And guess what? You could always just block them. It's such a simple thing, and your life is made. You don't have to worry about people who don't know what the heck they're talking about anymore. You just go, "Yep, that was a thing." So just like life, just keep on walking. So anyway. Thank you so much, Matt, for coming on and staying on and taking place of Dunn. I know we had some technical difficulties to start there, and you were just chumming along, doing your thing. Thanks a lot.
Well, I'm 3 hours behind you, so I wanted to make sure I wasn't late.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure I got you relative to your schedule and what you do on a certain Thursday night, I guess, or because we had people in Europe and we have to get them on early and make sure everyone's accommodating. But apparently we have too many more people. They want to have their 30 minutes, and we're gonna have a second or a third one.
Popular guy.
We're not. We're a very small channel. We have maybe 20. We once had 150 one time on our podcast, and we did some of the most annoying, obnoxious YouTubers with the worst takes on media criticism we've ever seen, and it's been fun. It's been really great to reach out to a lot of new people and get to know them and go on your show, hear your opinion, share your articles. It's nice to cross connect and get to know people. But we gotta go. I gotta go. The day is still young. This month has just been killing me. So it's
all right.
Just work and family and traffic and packages.
December for you. Yeah.
It's normal. It doesn't matter what's going on in the world. December's always going to be busy. So anyway, guys, thank you for tuning in and hanging out with us and watching a bunch of weird videos and talking about topics that you normally wouldn't get on the Smudcast, but that's why we do these 30-minute things with everyone involved. So Matt, I'd be happy to talk to you later if you got the time. Not today, but weekends or what have you. And yeah, no, I love watching your show. I love how much access you get with all these celebrities that no one knows. You get all the cast from Stargate Atlanta. It's like, holy shit.
I know, right? Yeah, we got really hooked up with the celebrities this year. We had a lot of really cool interviews. A couple of directors become actually pretty good friends with some of them. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I know some of them are in Canada, so it's like, hey, we can probably hang out. It's like, oh no, he's in Vancouver.
Oh yeah, Vincenzo Natali was a big one. He was the primary showrunner of the Peripheral on Amazon, and he did an episode of The Cabinet of Curiosities on Netflix, and he's done a couple pretty big movies like Cube, the original Cube.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
that's great.
So he's awesome, man. He's a great guy, and he's Canadian.
Yeah, Canada North, or Hollywood North as they call Toronto these days. But yeah, unfortunately, the only thing I know it's showcasing really is Star Trek Discovery, unfortunately. So yeah, sadly. Anyway, thank you guys. Have yourself a great evening. Thank you, Matt. Thanks everyone for coming in, and we'll talk to you real soon tomorrow. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.